Hello, ladies. Welcome. I'm so very happy to see you all here again. It's delightful to get to be with you. And once again, I'm excited about our topic for the day and the ground that we're going to be covering. I'd like to encourage you to go over and put yourself in the chat box if you haven't already. Say hi and go ahead and get yourself set up to be able to put your questions in there when we get to the Q&A part of our call. So if you want to head over to the chat box and hi, Margaret, nice to see you. That it's helpful for me if you do so that I know that you can hear and see me clearly. And I want you all to be able to ask questions later on. So I want you to just go ahead and get yourself familiar with how to be posting in the chat so that that's available to you once we get to the Q&A portion of our call. And we're going to be diving in pretty quickly here today because I have a lot of great content for you. And like I said, I want you to be able to answer questions. And I'm just going to make sure that we're adjusted in a way that everybody can really clearly see and hear. Yes? Hi, Andrea. So we're just going to keep encouraging women to come into the chat box as they come on. But we're not going to spend a lot of time waiting today. We're going to go ahead and get started. So I do want to encourage you to go ahead and sort of settle into wherever you are in this moment in time. Make sure you have a glass of water, whatever you're going to need to feel comfortable, pen and paper if you like to take notes, whatever it is that you're going to want to have with you for our time together today. And with that said, I'd like to invite you to sort of get settled in a way that you can drop in and start to bring your attention and awareness to your breath. So consciously beginning to take some deep belly breaths so that you can feel your belly rising with the inhale and falling with the exhale. Ladies who are coming on, please go ahead and put yourself in the chat so that we can see and hear from you and join us in taking some deep belly breaths together. You know, a lot of what we talk about when we go into the feminine teachings is how to come home to ourselves. And breath is really one of the simplest and always accessible ways to do so ongoingly. So again, just welcoming you to drop into some deep belly breaths, bringing yourself fully here and present in the now as you pay attention to how it feels to have air coming in and air flowing back out. Imagining that the goddess is breathing life into you with her breath, breathing herself into you as you inhale and receiving your exhale as you let go. And maybe on your exhale, you'd like to wiggle your shoulders around or your seat where you're sitting and maybe let it sound out and allow any tension or stress you might be holding in your body or from your day or from your week up to this point to just melt off of you into the earth below you. So that we're taking these moments here together to really pull ourselves back from whatever else you've been doing today or yesterday or what you still have to do later this evening or what's coming later in your week. Just all of those things get to be put aside right now for you to get to really be with you and feel yourself and be with your own energy. I invite you and welcome you to pull in the tendrils as we've done on our last two calls, where you're just going to invite those tendrils that you have out to all of those other people and places and things to come all the way back into you, so that as you breathe deeply into your belly and consciously bring yourself here to this present moment in time, you are actually consciously pulling all of your energy back into you and pulling it in your belly, fully returning to yourself. Deep belly breaths. Noticing how it feels to be with yourself right now, how it feels to let all of those other things go. They're all going to be there when you get back to them. Right now, you get to just be here with you. And noticing that for yourself. Couple of more deep breaths with that as you continue to pull your energy in and hold it in your belly. And as you're ready, I welcome you to open your eyes and dive in with us. Um, Please, ladies, as you're coming on, put yourselves in the chat. Let us know that you're here, and we're going to be welcoming your questions there later in our call. So here we are in the third class of the series. Hi, Raven. Welcome. Of Stop Chasing Men, Start Receiving Them. Hi, Rebecca. And so grateful you're all here, ladies. And in this class today, we're going to be talking about the topic of drop your hanky like a lady. And this is one of my favorite things to talk with women about because I think it's sort of become a lost part of our culture. And I believe it's one that we need to revive and revive quickly because it serves us all in the realm of romance. So first, let me explain to you what I mean when I say drop your hanky like a lady. So if we were still in, Jane Austen's time period, if we were having a Pride and Prejudice kind of experience, we would be, in very sort of proper codes of conduct. There'd be a lot of propriety in how we're relating. And one of the biggest ways that a woman would get a man's attention in that era, when there weren't a lot of ways really available to her, would be to literally drop her handkerchief on the ground in front of him. And then he would gallantly pick it up and hand it to her. And at that point, conversation can ensue, and they can begin to see if there are any, sparks or attraction there. And that was sort of one of her biggest tools for being able to start a courtship or let it be known that she was available for one. So today we're going to be talking about the modern day equivalent of dropping your hanky like a lady. And there's been so much of this that's been lost in the sort of feminist revolution of the past, 50, 60 years or so. And for good reason. We had a revolution for good reason, right? We all know that. And that's all fine and well. We gained a lot out of that. We gained a lot of freedoms out of that we didn't have before. But the truth is we also lost a lot in that. And one of the things that we lost is sort of a sense of virtue. So we took on doing it like a man can. And we took on, men can have casual sex, so can I. And that's true, we can. And we have a society in which that's easily done nowadays, whereas before it would have been far more taboo than it is now. However, in doing that, what we've done is create a situation in which men don't think that they're expected to bring romance. They're frustrated when they try to be gallant and chivalrous, and a woman doesn't want that from them. Because for a lot of men, it's really in their nature to be that way. For healthy masculine men, they want, we've talked about this, right? Their sort of place that they rest in as a masculine man is to provide, protect, and cherish for his world, for the earth, for women at large, for his children, and for his woman, for sure. And so you've heard me talk about being out on dates with men who thank me for waiting for them to open the car door for me. And it's because they want to give to us in that way. And we've shut them down and shut them off in so many kinds of ways. And oftentimes the ways that we shut them down and shut them off, we're cutting off for ourselves the things that we really want. We're cutting off the stream of cherishing that would be flowing to us. And many, many times I talk with women a lot who have a lot of anger in addition to that towards men. So, if you just flip that scenario for a moment and you look at the prospect of going out on a date with a man who's angry at women at large and therefore is sort of being standoffish with you, would you want to go out with that guy? Of course not. And the same is true in the reverse. Men, being angry towards men or standoffish towards men is a repelling energy. It's not a magnetizing energy. And so what we're talking about today is we look at what are our modern day equivalents of dropping the hanky, and how can we welcome those things from men, welcome his gallantry, welcome his chivalry, welcome him to be a gentleman. The way that we do that is we be a lady. And, ladies have sort of this air of mystery about them in a certain kind of way, and they have this air of knowing of themselves, and they have a certain way of being that's both fun and flirtatious and smart and clever and welcoming. So that's the energetic that we're going for when we're talking about relating with men. That's the energetic that's attractive to a healthy masculine man who wants to bring himself to a healthy feminine woman. So, being a lady in this kind of way, there are several sort of aspects of what that looks like. And some of the things that we're going to be talking about today are flirting, which in my opinion is a lost art and one that we need to get back as fast as possible. And we're going to be talking to you about dating, and this actually does apply to you married ladies as much as it does to you single ladies. And we're going to be talking about seduction and what is the art of seduction. So in a certain kind of way, these things, that set of things that I've just talked about, that I've just named, are the feminine package that you want to learn to embody in yourself so that you are magnetic to men. When you're magnetic to men, you don't have to chase them. They flock to you. And when that's not happening in your world, when that's not what you're attracting, then you want to start addressing some of these things and looking for where you're not showing up in your feminine. Because if you keep showing up in your masculine, you're going to repel healthy masculine men. They'll be your buddy, but they won't date you and take you seriously for a relationship or as a mate. So I want to begin today, after that explanation, with addressing some of the things that I commonly hear from women that are their resistance to this thing that I'm talking about today. And one of those things that I hear from women is that they think that flirting with a man is leading him on, which is the furthest thing from the truth. Flirting with a man is like playing, but it's not playing with him to toy with him in a nasty way or a manipulative way. It's playing to have fun with him. They like to have fun too. And so if you can think about any experience you've ever had where you got into some really fun, juicy flirting with a guy, it didn't even necessarily have to have any certain kind of outcome, but more that the flirting itself, the experience of being in the flirt was enough. And, maybe one or both of you wanted to take it on further from there or not. But the point is that flirting isn't mean, it isn't cruel, it isn't leading on. And when you flirt with a man, now again, I just want to point out that I'm talking about healthy masculine men. When you flirt with a healthy masculine man, the likelihood that he'll flirt in return is high because it's enjoyable, and he doesn't expect you to then go do anything else. He might ask for your phone number, or he might ask you on a date, or he might ask you to go to bed with him. He could ask you for any number of things or not. He might just enjoy the flirtation with you and then you both move on. But the point is that the flirtation itself is about getting into the energy of having fun and being playful. And whatever comes from that is your choice. So men enjoy that energy. It makes them feel attractive, and they want to feel attractive to women. And we enjoy that energy. It makes us feel attractive. Unless we've had experiences where we now don't trust ourselves with men and flirting feels unsafe to us because we're still holding on to that idea that it means now this is going to happen, something bad. So if that's a wall that you have, if that's a resistance that you have, I want you to start consciously going into that resistance and into that wall and really starting to take it down. to get yourself to the place of understanding what flirting actually is. So when you offer a flirt to a guy, or even just an opening into conversation that could lead into flirting, that's the equivalent of dropping your hanky. So I'll give you an example of this. I was in the local health food store, one of them, and I was looking at bananas. And there was a very cute, like really cute guy, probably 10 years younger than me, stocking bananas. He was putting bananas in the shelf. And I'm looking at bananas, deciding which ones I want. And some of them just sort of fall into my basket. It was an accident. And he said to me, "Looks like those want to go home with you." I said, "They actually often do." And we both had this moment of like looking at each other. And then I said, I'm sorry. That just like, I didn't even stop to think about that. And he was like, "Hey, don't worry about it." And we had a really, really fun time over the bananas. So just, it was just a silly sort of like momentary thing. And it made us both feel good. I walked away from that experience like, oh, I had a really good flirt with the banana boy today. So it's like that. And so, I drop the hanky, he picks it up, he hands it back to me, we have a little chat. It's fun. It's fun. And so, the thing about flirting is that it's an art. And if you don't feel comfortable doing it, then it's a thing to be learned. Now, some of us maybe come by it naturally, and that's a great thing. If you don't, if it's an edge for you, then I really highly recommend that you start looking for women who are flirting like in movies, or even when you're out and about watching how people are interacting. Like, get into the habit of watching people and looking for how women flirt and what that looks like. And there's an energy in it that's about being coy and about being a little bit forward, but it's not a chasing energy. It's not a trying to get something energy. It's just a I'm available to play energy. So first and foremost, flirting, that's like a big, big thing that I talk to women about all the time. And that resistance piece of like thinking that it must then mean something else, I really want to encourage you to just sort of like get that out of the way if it is in the way for you, and start flirting with men everywhere. So here's the second biggest thing that I think women come up against when it comes to flirting. It is my experience that women tend to have this idea that there is the one. I don't. I think that there are 3.5 billion men on the planet, and that the likelihood that more than one of that number could suit you is high. And so, and I think that women, when they build themselves into the idea of the one, they build themselves into they're only going to relate in this certain kind of way when he gets there. The problem with that thinking is that if your guy shows up, and when I say your guy, I mean one of the maybe, let's say 100 out of the 3.5 billion on the planet who could possibly be all the things that you want and need in a relationship. So let's say you meet one of those guys, but you've not been flirting, and you've not been playing at being coy, and you've not been learning about what it is to seduce or be in your feminine energy. You could just miss him altogether. You won't be an attractive match, or you won't feel confident and comfortable in relating with him, and it'll cross. So now, of course, are there exceptions to that? Yes, absolutely. Maybe you meet your guy and he's as confused as you are, but ultimately, wouldn't you like to be ready to meet your guy? Wouldn't you like to feel confident? Wouldn't you like to feel like you've got this flirting thing down? So what I like to encourage women to do is flirt everywhere, with men. Why? Because men are everywhere. Men are at the health food store with the bananas. Men are at the mechanic shop. They're at the gym. They're at the library. They're at the concert. They're at the bar. They're at the restaurant. They're everywhere. And so the number of opportunities that you have for flirting and carrying on with men is exponentially greater than you are likely being aware of. And so what I encourage women to do is get aware of it, like become aware of the fact that you can interact with men everywhere you go because they are everywhere. And I recommend that you really consciously start flirting with them. Flirt with the guy at the checkout counter. Flirt with the guy who you're buying flowers from. Flirt with the guy who's going to change your oil. And you're not flirting to get your guy. You're not flirting to get him to ask you out. You're flirting for the practice of flirting because it feels good and because it builds your feminine energy and your feminine radiance. This is one of the most potent and powerful and fun tools that I know of to build your magnetism, build your radiance, and start having men come to you like bees with honey. And in fact, I was recently on a date with a guy, now that I think about it, who said to me, I just love how playful you are. They do. They want that. You know, it's like we've talked about before. What they're doing out in the world, they want something different than that on a date. On a date, they want playful and fun and feminine and flirty. So if you're a woman for whom this does not come naturally, or you're not in the practice of doing it, it's okay. It's a learned thing. You can learn it. And you just practice. You practice that like you practice yoga or you practice anything else. You just practice everywhere you go. And I recommend flirting with older men and younger men and same age men, and just flirting for the fun of flirting and to build your own sense of feminine self-confidence. So that's one major piece of how we drop our hanky. And when we do that and they pick it up and return it to us, then it's sort of like game on, you know, let's have some fun. And it can be, you know, 2 minutes at the bananas and health food store, or it can be a 10-minute conversation with somebody in the line at the bank, or it can be something that turns into an hour over drinks. You know, there are infinite ways that can play out. The point is to play with it and have fun with it and start building that in yourself. So, I want to talk a little bit about trusting yourself with men. So trusting yourself with men can be very challenging when you've had experiences with men and or relationships with men that left you feeling deeply hurt or wounded. So that just is the truth of what is. Coming out of those experiences can be incredibly painful. We all know that. And it can make us question ourselves, like, do I really want to get involved with a man again? Do I trust myself enough to flirt and play? Would I have what it takes to know I'm choosing a good guy? So, you know, I hear those kinds of questions from women a lot, and they're valid questions. And my response to that is this: you learn how to choose the right kind of guy for you and choose somebody you can trust when you learn how to deeply trust yourself. So when you continue coming back to yourself, continue practices of coming home to yourself, like the journey of her mystery school, that's a journey of coming deeply home to yourself. When you do that, you learn to trust yourself at a deeper level and in a deeper way. And then you can trust yourself in the choices that you're making with men. So I did just want to say that I do know that that's a thing, and I've experienced it myself, and I talk with women all of the time. I respect that and I honor that, and it's on us to not allow heartbreak to shut us down, but instead to let it crack our heart open more deeply for more love to pour through. That's really what that's about. To let each heartbreak help us become larger and be able to hold more. So we talked about flirting. I want to talk a little bit about femininity and how we present our femininity, and then we're going to talk that's related to seduction, and we're going to talk about that as well. So in dating men, and again, like I said, this applies to married women as well, and to women who've been in relationships for a long time, particularly if your relationship has kind of lost its spark and you want to bring that back. the fastest way to do that is to really drop yourself back into your feminine and show up to your guy like you would show up to a new guy that you're dating. So ladies who are single right now and dating or not dating right now, well, I do want to speak to dating for just a moment. But I want to say that what we're about to go into about seduction and showing up in your feminine relate to all of those kinds of relationships. But let's talk about dating for just a moment. So this is another very common thing that I hear from women. They don't want to date. They don't like dating. It hasn't been good for them in the past. They don't think that's how they're going to meet their guy. And again, they're sort of fixated on meeting that one guy who's going to be the one. And, you know, there are a lot of terms for that. Your soulmate, the one, the however. So even if that's what you believe, and that's fine if that's what you believe, you still have to get to him. And when you get to him, you want to be prepared for receiving him. So, you know, this thing about flirting with other men and learning how to relate by relating with other men until you meet him is a really, really helpful tool in sort of preparing yourself to be ready for the kind of guy that you really ultimately want to meet. And dating is one of the best tools for doing that. So the reasons that I hear from women that they don't like dating are that, you know, they've tried online dating and that was a big mess and really did not feel good. Or they think that online dating would be a big mess and not feel good. Or they've been out on really horrible dates with the men. I mean, there are others like, you know, 100 reasons. But let me share with you 3 good reasons to date. First and foremost, when you learn how to date in a way that puts you in front of masculine, healthy men, then what you're going to get on a date is a lot of provision and cherishing. And that feels really good, ladies. And it feels good whether this guy is going to be your guy or not. It feels nice to have a man show up, nicely dressed, open the doors for you, take you to dinner, make sure you're comfortable, all of those things. And online dating is a really fantastic tool in that it gives us the opportunity to be in front of a large number of men all at one time, which is an opportunity we don't often have in our day-to-day lives. You know, I recently saw the latest statistics about online dating is that 75% of couples, newly formed couples, met online. That is a huge percentage. And, you know, I imagine that's going to keep growing because it makes sense. It's logical. Men are logical. It's logical to them to find women online. And if we sort of get in that with them, it is logical for us. We're going to meet a lot of men that way. So dating is a beautiful way to put ourselves in front of a lot of men all at one time. It's a beautiful way to set ourselves up to receive some good cherishing. And it helps us sort and sift through what we like and what we don't like. So, you know, if you go out with several men at a time, and I do recommend dating at least 3 or more at a time. If you're actively dating 3 or more men at all times until you find one that both of you want to be exclusive with each other. And here's why. If you date one, you set yourself up to fall in love with him, whether he's the right kind of guy for you or not. If you date 2, you set yourself up to have to choose between them. That sucks. If you date 3 or more, you keep yourself sort of back away from it and not too invested too fast in any one person, so that you give a guy the chance to be the one who's going to invest in you. And then you know, if that's feeling good to you the way that he's investing, then that's where you want your energy to flow. But until then, your energy is open and available to meet men. So that's my that's my spiel that I have to say to all of my women about dating. Dating's really important. If you're single, dating is really, really important. If you have issues with dating and you want some support with that, that's a big part of what I do in my coaching. And you feel free to reach out and set up a session, a discovery session with me, and see if you might like to explore that together. So dating for married women or women who've been in relationships for a long time, you know, most everybody knows that date night is a good idea. But then doing it is a whole other thing, right? Like getting it on your schedule, making sure you've got a sitter, your work schedule, his work schedule, all the reasons why it can be difficult, and still it's important. And important things are worth doing the work for, even if it's difficult, which is why you got married to begin with, right? So for those ladies, I do recommend that you do have date night, and we're about to roll into how to show up on date night that's going to bring that spark back to your marriage, back to your relationship. So I always recommend a few things to women when they're going on dates with men. We talked last week when we were covering neuroscience about colors and the way men's eyes see colors, right? If you remember, we talked about from a brain perspective, they see rich, saturated colors in a very distinctive kind of way. And they might not see and for sure not name all of the range of colors that we see. And there's a biological reason for this. When we were gathering berries, we needed our eyes to be able to suss out various shades of red to see which ones were the poisonous berries and which ones were the ones we could actually eat. And so our biological and neurological development over time was that we need to be able to see a full spectrum of all the reds, right? So that applies to the other colors as well. Men, not so much. They didn't need that. That wasn't there. They needed focus and to focus on one thing at a time so they could hunt. So we've not really evolved out of that very much. And so what that means, though, what we know about men's visual, well, first, let's say men are visual. We know that, right? That's why if you're sitting with a guy, or maybe you're out with your guy and you're walking, or even out with a male friend, and you see like a woman walk by in a red shirt, he can't help it. Like his eyes just go directly to it. Sitting in a sports bar with a guy, his eyes are going to keep going back and forth to the screen. He can't help it. It's the way that their visual orientation works. It's not because they're bad, and it's not because they're checking out other women when they're with you. It's because it's what their eyes and their brains do. And so what you want is to create a situation where his eyes and brains are doing that with you. And the way to do that is when you go on a date with a guy, you want to wear rich, saturated jewel tones. Like this, for instance. Red signifies to a man that you could potentially be available for sex. Red equals sex in his brain. And, these are largely unconscious things that we're talking about. And it's fine whether they're conscious of them or not. It's still enjoyable. And so that's what you want to do. You want to show up in a way that you present yourself and your femininity in a way that he can really take your beauty in. So jewel tones, emerald, cobalt, fuchsia, magenta, purple, pink, so you want to think about wearing jewel tones on your dates, particularly up around your face. Now, I know a lot of women are really into their black. I get it. I do. I love my black too. It's not your best bet on a date if you want the guy's attention on you, because it doesn't register for them the same way that color does. Now, if every dress you own is black, then buy yourself a colorful shawl and put it over your black dress. I recommend to women that you have several dresses and blouses in jewel tone colors. You can, wear a black skirt with that if you want to, but up around your face, there needs to be color, and there needs to be sparkle of some kind. So sparkly earrings, a sparkly something in your hair, a sparkly necklace, something up around this area that has sparkle along with your jewel tones. And that in itself just sets you up to be beauty in a way that his brain takes in a really sort of rich kind of way. So this is really, really good for you women who've been in with your guy for a long time to know. If you're in the habit of walking around your house in your sweats, I say put your sweats away, put on some jewel tones, and get out and have some fun with your guy. Ladies who are single and dating, this is a huge part of you being the lady that grabs his attention, that magnetizes his attention. So then let's talk about, you've got your jewel tones, you've got your sparkly, you've taken time to get ready for your date, you're going to show up, You've been practicing your flirting. You know you want to flirt with this guy because you're attracted to him, or maybe you haven't met him yet. Maybe this is your first date. And even if you're just going for coffee, put your jewel tones on. You can keep it more casual, but still keep it in color. And then when you're with him, presenting yourself in your feminine. So this is the art of seduction. It really is as simple as being a feminine woman and showing up in your feminine. So for instance, rather than going on a date with a guy and giving him an interview, where does he work? How long has he been working there? How to get into that field? Blah, 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 blah. How about asking him about his passions? What does he love to do in his life? And ideally, he's going to be asking a lot of those things about you. And I recommend that you also don't go into talking about work. You go into talking about your passions and what lights you up in life. What you want to do is present yourself as a lit up, radiant, feminine woman. So that's the first step in any seduction, is that you have to be the feminine, you have to be the lady. So next piece of that is flirting, like we talked about, and then starting to take it to a little bit of a deeper level. And some ways that you can do that, particularly once you're starting to feel comfortable with a guy, is you can do things like put your hand on his shoulder as you talk to him. Or if you've already moved, a little bit further down the line, or for you ladies who are already in established relationships, you can sort of put your hand on his knee and sort of stroke his knee while you talk to him. And you want to use your body language and your body posture to get into that sort of flirty, seductive place. So ways you can do that, sort of like lean forward, let him see all of this that you have already dressed up for him. Other ways that you can do that, you can drop your voice and talk in a more sexy kind of way. Men love it. If you study film stars, like Marilyn Monroe comes to mind, and there are others for sure, who were known for their abilities in that way, it's worthwhile to watch some of their movies and look at what they do. Now, know that they are doing it in an exaggerated way, yes, and you can pull that back if you need to, or you can go full on if you want to. But the point is to start using your body language and your voice and the way that you speak and the way that you move and the way that you present yourself visually to be alluring. That's seduction. And it doesn't mean that it's going to the bedroom. It might. I mean, there are definitely, deeper and deeper layers of seduction and how far you want to take it. But all we're talking about right now is even in the way that you show up in the world. So in your day-to-day, in your interactions with people as you come and go, and on your dates with either current boyfriend or somebody you're dating or somebody you're soon going to be dating, because all of you are now going to date, that we've talked about dating and how wonderful it is, right? So seduction, how you present yourself. You can even, we talked about touching him. You can also touch yourself. Like as you're thinking about it, you can kind of flip your hair a little bit and just trace along your collarbone. And maybe you're having a thought that you're sort of contemplating it as you share it with him, right? So it's just it's like subtle ways that you bring his mind to thinking about touching you, so that not. And again, let's not confuse this with trying to get him into bed, because A, you're not trying to get him anything, and B, you go to bed when you are feeling that, and then you can sort of amp it up a bit if you want to. But this is all about enjoying yourself with men and presenting yourself in a way that they will enjoy you too. So when you're on a date with a guy and you've got it all going on and you're in your feminine and you're in your radiance and you're flirting and you're having fun and you're interesting, because you are, and you're presenting what's interesting about you, that guy is for sure going to want to see you again. And if he doesn't, he's not your guy. Next, move on. So this whole thing is about, like I said earlier, bringing us back to a time when it's actually the woman who makes the move. And, the first move, we talk a lot about not chasing men. And so we don't want to make the first move. We don't want to be the one to ask them out. We don't want to be the one to get their phone numbers. Are there men who love that? Definitely. Are there women who are really skilled at that? Absolutely. Do those relationships last? Sometimes. But the bigger sort of picture here is that we're talking about having had experiences where chasing men didn't work out for us, and we want to sit back into our receiving and have them come and come after us. And so the way to do that, as we've been talking about all throughout this class series, is to really get into your feminine and into your radiance and be magnetic. And what we're talking about today in terms of flirting and the art of seduction and how to present yourself in your feminine, that is how you be magnetic. It's how you're presenting your magnetism after you've been building it and cultivating it inside of yourself. So the building and cultivating part is crucial, because if you try to present it when you don't actually have it inside of yourself, you're going to come off as uncertain. And what you want to come off as is confident. And you'll be confident when you're feeling like you've really cultivated this in yourself and you know how to radiate it outwards. And now you know how to present it and radiate it through these kinds of ways that we're talking about today that can amp it up. So the truth is, if you have cultivated your femininity and your radiance and your magnetism, and you are in radiance of it, you could be walking around in your frumpy gray sweats and still get every guy turning to look at you because of how you move in your radiance. But these pieces around how you present yourself with, adorning your beauty, being in rich colors, adding sparkle, all of those things, that's how to really sort of amp it up and make it super clear what you are as a feminine, radiant, magnetic, confident woman. So, in the days when the lady dropped her hanky, she made the first move. Now, it's a subtle move. It wouldn't have been the same thing as her going up and curtsying in front of him and asking him to dance. That's not a thing she would have done. That's an overt move. And so what we're talking about in these sort of this like modern setting of how to do this, flirting, showing up in your radiance, those kinds of things are how we make the first move. One of the best ways to do that is to smile. Smile at a guy. You're out at a restaurant with friends and you see a couple of guys standing at the bar having a drink, and you are just really into one of them. Catch the eye, smile, and look away. Be coy. And then if you notice that he's looking again, and this is another interesting thing about men's vision. They tend to be more tunnel vision than we are. We tend to have greater periphery than they do. And that's why when a man wants to look at another woman in the room while he's with you, he'll turn his head to do it, because he can't see out of periphery like you can, but you can watch him walk past you and go back over there and then come back and walk past you again to see, because you can see all that out of your periphery. The point is, you want to make a little eye contact, look away, see if he's still engaging a little bit, look again and smile and look down. Be coy, be playful. And it's a way that you can start making invitations to men to approach you. So we want to be approachable, right? And we want to convey that we're approachable. And we do that by shining out towards them. And the easiest way to do that is by smiling. And you don't want to, engage and sort of hang out there. you want to kind of engage and look away and engage again and just give it a little flirt. So these are ways that we, in our times now, drop the hanky. And they're some of the best ways to get men's attention and to get men interested in you and to start feeling that sort of masculine energy coming towards you that we all really want, right? So that it's coming towards you and you're not going out to get it. You're not chasing it. You're not grabbing at it. You're not trying to get it. You're not having to do anything. So these are first date things. And that's, initial stages. These things work as well as you're dating, as dating progresses, as well as further into relationships and even long-term established relationships, because we all want to feel that. We want to feel our aliveness. We want to feel our sexuality. It's a beautiful energy, and we want to feel connection. And so that's what we're talking about creating. How do you create connection? And ladies, you can drop the hanky regardless of how long you've known your guy. And The more you do it, the more ongoingly you do it, the more day to day you do it, the more you keep yourself in the spark and you keep that alive in your relationship and with your guy. So, I want to just say a couple of other things about how you present yourself, and then I want to hear your questions. So we've talked about, bright colors and sparkly things. In general, what I really recommend to you is that you start dressing yourself in more feminine ways, meaning wear skirts, wear dresses. I've had men online say to me, I love all the dresses, by the way. All of my pictures online are in dresses. I love all the dresses, by the way. It seems to be, sadly, a fading part of the American woman's wardrobe. I actually had that email from a guy, nice looking guy. So I really do think they notice and they're looking for it. They want it. They want our femininity. So if you want to wear your pantsuits to the office all day long, great, go for it. But when you come home and you get ready for a date, put a skirt on, put a dress on, dress it up, enjoy that, have fun with that. The biggest part of what it is to be feminine as you're on a date or with your husband or with whomever is look good, feel good, smell good. That's if you can remember that rule in your head, no matter what else is going on, all I need to do is look good, feel good, smell good. Now, this is not about diminishing your intelligence. It's not about showing up as ditzy, and it's not about showing up as less intellectual than you are. It's just about allowing that to sort of soften back so that other aspects of you can come more forward, that serve the dating process more, that serve sexuality more, that serve creating this healthy feminine masculine dynamic more. It serves more to bring your femininity to the forefront, look good, feel good, smell good, than it does to come in with all of your intellect and all of how accomplished you are. Because when you start doing that, you get into your masculine and men feel it and they don't like it. It's not what they're looking for. They're not looking for stupid women, and they're not looking for you to be unintelligible. They're just looking for you to be feminine. So show them that up front. Show them that on date night with your husband. Let all of that other stuff you have to do all the time just sit aside for a little while. It's okay. It doesn't take us back anywhere except to chivalry and courtship, which is, from my perspective, where we get the kind of cherishing that we really want. Yeah? Okay, so let's get into some of your questions now. I've seen that you've been posting a few. Can you recommend any online websites for dating? Yes, I recommend Match.com. The reason that I recommend Match is that in my experience of using dating websites, there are several now. They're like swipe websites, and those are, from my perspective, confusing for women who have any kind of narcissism in their backgrounds or any kind of really unhealthy relationship dynamics in their backgrounds. What I like about Match is that there's no instant texting. You have to send the message and it goes via email. Now you might get it while you're online, but you can wait and look at it later. And the reason that I like that is it gives a little bit of a buffer. It gives me a chance to say, okay, I see that there are a couple of men approaching me. I'm going to take my time taking that in and deciding how I'd like to respond to it. I do want to say that I think online dating is an art. There's a really fantastic way to go about it, and there's a really not way to go about it. And again, if you feel like you want to explore that with some support, you can feel free to reach out and set up a discovery session with me about that. But in answer to your question, I recommend Match. Okay. Eva says, I was always afraid to flirt with somebody I'm not physically attracted with because then I don't know how to get rid of them. They'll think that I give them green light and I have to stop them because I actually didn't mean anything, was just playing. Yeah, that's a great question. And I see others saying I feel the same way. So the thing about that is this. When you're flirting with a man that you can see you're not physically attractive to, you want to keep it super light. Super light. You don't want to go anywhere with it. You don't want to take it deeper. You don't want to amp it up. Just, like the thing with the bananas. They fell into my cart. He said, it looks like they want to go home with you. I said, yeah, they almost always do. He laughed. I said, oh my God, I didn't even think about that before I said it. He was like, you know what? Don't worry about it. Now, he was cute. I would have kept going with that if we had not been at his job. But my point is, you can leave it at that and then move on. So you don't want to stand and invest a lot of time and energy in a guy that you can tell you're not physically attracted to. And if he starts pursuing it too much, then you can just cut it off, just very gently. You know, thanks so much. Nice chatting with you. I have to run now. Or thanks so much. I really have someplace I need to be. Thanks so much. I hope you have a great day. Leave it. You don't have to take it any further. Save your juiciest stuff for guys you really do feel attracted to. Some guys will take it as a green light. That's true. And that's when you have to put up the red light. That's all. I don't want to hurt people. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Flirting's not about hurting somebody. It's not about leading them on. I think that's the biggest thing that women think they're doing. They think they're leading them on. It's about playing. It's about playing. And, you know, the guy who's not used to getting as much attention from women because he's maybe not as attractive as the next guy, he enjoys that attention. He enjoys getting attention too. He enjoys being flirted with. And so, you know, it's there's a certain kind of way in which when you're really confident in yourself and you're centered and grounded in yourself, you know when to take it a little further or when not. You know when he's getting too excited about it and it's not working for you. You know when to cut it off. You can trust yourself. And it's not about, you're not hurting somebody by flirting with them. And if he thinks that you're leading him on, then he's not a healthy masculine guy. You need to walk away. So, healthy masculine men like to flirt. They know how to flirt, they want to flirt, and they also know that it doesn't necessarily mean anything else. Let's see what else we've got here. I saw that there was another question. With online dating, is it okay to send a guy a wink or a smile first? Does that count as flirting? Yes, that does count as flirting. And yes, it is okay to be the first one to do it. Raven asks, can you explain the difference between seducing and chasing? I've always been under the impression that they were the same thing. Great question. So chasing, remember, like we've been talking about throughout this series, is going after something. It's an energy that sort of leans you forward out of your body with your hands ready to grasp at it and get it and bring it back to you. That's what the energy of chasing feels like. The energy of seducing feels like opening up your body and your chest and your heart and your belly and sort of making room for it to come in and sort of welcoming it. Even if you lean forward into it, you're more sort of, the energy is more like you're going to gently slide your arm around his backside and hug him in a really delicious, yummy way. But you're not trying to get anything. You're offering him your space to come into. And he can choose to come into there or not. So it can be a subtle difference, but I think the easiest way to think about it is the energetic of it. You're not trying to get something. You're offering something that he can come into. That's the difference between chasing and seducing. How do you get out of a self-imposed friend zone situation? Nancy, can you tell me more about how it was self-imposed? And I'd be happy to answer your question. Lisa says, I've been doing online dating and watching what guys say. Then after we get to the phone number exchange, I've been letting him make moves. Then it's been interesting. Some guys only talk about themselves. Some get to know me, ask about my interests, and some just talk about themselves. One guy just sends me songs. The one I normally would go after is self-centered. Yeah, sure. And he hasn't asked me anything about me. Right. So, you know, patterns. The thing is, when we have a pattern of having chosen guys in our past who are complacent or narcissistic or self-absorbed or not available or emotionally unavailable, or when we have patterns of having that in our past, then it's common that we're going to see ourselves attracted to those kinds of guys again, the guy who's not really putting in the effort, who's not really available. And it's good to notice it. It's good that you're noticing it, and then choose not to do it. Choose something else. Choose somebody else. Choose the guy who's asking you the questions about you, at least for a while. He might not be your forever guy, but Um, there's an interesting thing about this that's really important. Like I said earlier, ideally, he's going to be asking you a lot of questions about you, and that's going to evolve into sort of a natural flow of conversation. Oftentimes, on a first date especially, guys will talk a lot about themselves. And the reason that they're doing that is because they're advertising. They're telling you what they can tell you about themselves that would suggest what they have to offer you. Because that's how guys see a date. They see that they're going to show up and show you what they've got that they could give you that could contribute to your happiness. Again, remember, if he's a healthy masculine guy. So if he's talking a lot about himself, it's usually that. It's usually that he's wanting to convey to you what he would provide for you if you were to date him. You know, if he's talking about his career or how much money he makes or what car he drives or how many trips he went on this year, all of that stuff is telling you the level of lifestyle that he leads, that it would be what he would be offering to you in a relationship if you were to ever get there. So a lot of guys will do that. They'll spend the whole evening advertising, and women get super turned off by it and super frustrated by it for good reason, because it doesn't feel all that great. But if you can just know in yourself that's what he's doing, and if you like him enough or what he's advertising enough to see him again, go ahead and go for the second date, because oftentimes that's when they'll relax enough to start asking about you. And a lot of times the reason that guys advertise so much on a first date is because they're nervous. And when they're nervous, they tend to talk about themselves a lot. So if you're seeing that in a guy, especially, then I always recommend going for the second date, because that's when they'll often relax more, ask about you more. Now, if you go on the second date and it's the same thing, at that point, I personally would cut it loose. You have to sort of make that call based on other things like, is he interesting enough? Does he seem to have the lifestyle that you want? Is it worth going on a third date? Did you enjoy his company even though he didn't ask about you a lot? You know, I think there are caveats to that. I think there are questions to be asked, but in general, it's my experience that when a guy on your second date continues to talk about himself and not ask about you, it's because he's at some level super self-absorbed, and that's not going to be great cherishing for you. Ideally, when you leave a date, you're going to feel that your self-esteem has risen in his presence in some way because of how he's treating you and how you're feeling in it. You're going to feel calm inside of yourself and at ease. You might feel excited, like it would be fun to see him again, but you're not going to feel adrenalized, and you're not going to feel amped up, and you're not going to feel anxious. So if you go home from a date feeling any of those things, those are red flags. That was a great question. Let's see. And others are saying they're experiencing the same kind of thing with men on the phone. Yeah, so on the phone is just a weird thing, right? You're trying to have a conversation with somebody that you don't know at all. You've possibly not even met them in person yet. So, you know, I say keep phone dates short, no longer than half an hour, especially if it's your first connection outside of email. Also, you should get away from email as soon as possible. There should be like 2 or 3 exchanged, and then you're on a phone call or a first date. First date should be coffee date, a walk in the park, maybe drinks, no longer than an hour. Keep the first ones really short so you don't burn yourself out with trying to relate with a new person, and so that you leave him wanting more. So that's another piece of the art of seduction, right? You always want to leave a guy wanting more of you. If you give all of yourself all at one time, there's nothing left for him to chase after. There's nothing left for him to want more of. Now, of course, there are men who are going to get in and be secure attachments and be really into you, and still they like to come and get it from you. They like for you to tease them with it a little bit. Margaret asks, can you talk about meeting men online who live out of state? I'm meeting a lot who live out of my state. I'm open to meeting them. What are your thoughts about long distance relationships? I think long distance relationships are tricky, and I think that they can work for some kinds of women and not for others, and you have to know that about yourself. I also think that in long distance relating or long distance relationships, you run the risk of falling in love with somebody and then never being able to fulfill the relationship. I think for those relationships to work, you have to know pretty early on that one or both of you is willing to move to where the other is at some point down the line. So that's my first thought about long distance relationships. I do think that when you're dating online, if you're open to the possibility of moving somewhere else, at some point, then meeting men from other states can be great. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's just more about knowing yourself and knowing, if you've lived in the same town for the past 10 years and all of your life is there and you're never going to leave there, I don't think it's a great idea to be dating men in other states unless they're making it clear that they're willing to travel and they're willing to relocate. Somebody's going to have to be willing to relocate at some point or the relationship's going to end. Unless you're, very happy with a very spacious relationship where you're not going to spend a lot of time together, but you're going to spend a lot of time apart. Great question. And that's what I think about those kinds of relationships. So we're right at time. Anybody have any last questions before we close it up today? Anything about flirting, dating, how to present yourself in your feminine, seduction? Okay. Rebecca says she's got one posted above. Let's see if I can find it. I find that the guys are so interested in asking me so many questions, I often feel I don't have the room to ask them. Then I leave feeling like I didn't get to learn enough about them. It's like they are interviewing me. Okay, that's interesting. They're not interviewing you, they're exploring you. It's a big difference. So, and they might be doing it in a way that feels like an interview. Like if a guy's asking you, what do you do? Which a lot of guys will lead with that. And what I suggest to women when a guy says that to you is, well, I go to the farmer's market on the weekend and I have my ecstatic dance class every Friday. And I have this group of friends that I go out with about once a month and we do drinks together. Start describing to him what you do that's not your work. So that you are sharing with him what you're passionate about, what you love. If he asks you, what do you do for work? Then I recommend saying, if your work is something you're super passionate about, then tell him what you do for work. And I love it. It's amazing. It's my dream job. And I'd love to share more of that about that with you at some point. But, I just actually got done with a long day of work and I'd love to get to relax now and sort of talk about other things. So what I'm pointing out is geared away from work and into who you are, what you're passionate about, what makes you thrive. Now, if what you're doing in your work is a lot about who you are and what you're passionate about and what makes you thrive, then it's great to talk about that. But what you just don't want to get into sharing your accomplishments and sharing how you built it and all of those kinds of things, because then you're off into your masculine again. You want to stay in your feminine and share about what lights you up. But when men are doing that, it's not, some men can interview surely, but what they're actually doing is exploring you. If he's a healthy masculine guy, he's exploring you because he wants to find out what lights you up. So then he can start thinking about ways to give you that. Okay, let's see. Is that our last question? Okay, a couple of last questions here. If I have a hard time making excuses to shorten the date, I have a hard time making excuses to shorten the date, to end it. So I'm thinking that if you say you're making excuses, that means you're on a date you don't want to be on anymore. And in my opinion, you don't have to make an excuse. You can just be honest. You can say, I need to go. That's unarguable. You don't have to give him a reason. Unless you think he's a nice guy and you want to let it down easy, you can just say, thank you so much for the evening. I really appreciate you for the effort that you put in. I'm not feeling that spark that I'm looking for between us, and I'm going to go home now. But again, I really appreciate you for the date, and keep it really simple. And I recommend having an end time in mind before you go on a date, especially in the first, say, 5 to 7 dates. First date should be no longer than an hour, maybe 2 if you're going to dinner. 3-hour dates after that, like just keeping it short and just making it clear. It's, it's my bedtime, or I had a lovely evening. Yeah, like that. Okay, last question. Eva says, what if being playful is just not your nature? I'm a more straightforward kind of person. I was learning to flirt and be seductive and kind of succeeded in it, but it still feels like not natural to me. Yeah, if it doesn't feel natural to you, then practice until it feels more natural. It's really important. It's great to be straightforward in a kind of way, because that's how men communicate. And so as you get into deeper and deeper things with them, that's really going to serve you to be able to be direct and straightforward. In the beginning, about attraction, you need to be able to flirt. You need to be able to sort of be in your feminine and be soft, because it's what they're looking for. If what you want is a very masculine guy, if you don't, if that's not so much, if you're content with dating men who are a little less masculine and more in their beta and more in their feminine, then it would be okay for you to be less flirty and more straightforward. But in general, I do believe that flirting and seduction are what build attraction. Attraction builds desire, and desire is what we want, right? We want to feel desired. We want to feel his desire for us from the guy that we want it from. And we want to feel our own desire for him. And flirting and seduction is what builds desire. So I recommend that even if it doesn't come naturally to you, that you practice it. It's worthwhile. It's worth what you get from it. And last question, Doiga says, if relationship is started as a friendship, can I move into flirting? You can, yes. And what you might find is it'll confuse him. He'll be like, wait a minute, what just happened? It might take a few times before he understands that you're flirting with him, and he may or may not flirt back with you. If there's a possibility that he would move it out beyond friendship, then he'll probably start flirting back. If he doesn't return your flirting, or if it looks like it's making him uncomfortable, those are good signs that he only wants to keep it as a friendship. So yes, you can start flirting and see how it goes, see what happens. So thank you so much, ladies, for all of your participation today. I so appreciate your great questions, and I hope that this class series has been really valuable to you, and that you will take all of what you've learned here and apply that in your lives in a way that really starts to bring you the cherishing that you're desiring and leads you into the relationship with the love of your life that's going to adore you for all of your days to come. That's my deepest wish and desire for you. And you're so welcome. Thank you for all your gratitude. It is my pleasure to be with you. Anytime that you feel like you might need more support with these things, do feel free to reach out and get that free discovery session. You can do that on my website at passionasprayer.com, or you can email me directly at dionysia@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to set that up with you. And of course, I'm available for coaching. If you feel like you could use some deeper support and we could move into coaching, definitely feel free to reach out to me about those things. And lastly, I do want to say that I would love to encourage you to check out her mystery school and consider taking the 9-month journey with us that begins in September. If you sign up now, you'll start receiving information through the summer. But even if you wait until September and sign up then, you'll be with us on that 9-month journey that really is all about building these things into yourself, really building your femininity and your radiance and your magnetism in a way that you rest in your own deep knowing and trust of yourself. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be with you. I wish you all of your heart's desires to come true.